All right, everybody. Well, welcome. It is April 1st. We Lee and I were joking. Maybe we announce our engagement or something.
Yeah, that's it. It's just our long distance engagement. We've met once in
exactly. But then I've lost my enthusiasm for April 1st. Although I only saw one April Fool's joke today, and it got me, and it was a really good one. And it was Gary Marcus, who is just always crapping all over Sam Altman and ChatGPT. And he said, hey, I got a sneak peek of ChatGPT 5 and it's multimodal and it didn't hallucinate and it's awesome. Published date, April 1st. So that was a pretty good one.
That's
very good use of the day.
Yep.
So Leah, everything's changing.
Everything's changing. I do feel a little bit like the announcement from ChatGPT about the photos was like its own special April Fool's joke, except it's real.
Except it's real. And you know, it's funny. I was thinking that because, ChatGPT already made images and this was just kind of in a lot of ways an incremental improvement, right? Because DALL-E was not bad, right? You could make decent stuff within it. That I thought a lot of people would miss it, but au contraire, it seems to be like really lighting things on fire. I've seen a lot more people pissing and moaning about AI in general. And I've seen a lot more people talking about, this is actually going to screw up a lot of jobs.
Yeah, it feels like for creative folks who are in the creative world, I like to think I don't want to think we're losing jobs. I just want to think things are going to evolve. Mm-hmm. Right. And luckily we're creatives and we've done creative things our whole lives. And so we can, in a very creative way, figure out how to adapt and use this new technology. That's in my better moments.
Yeah, exactly. But we've been paying attention to this stuff for 2 years. Yeah. So like we're seeing this as kind of this incremental thing. If someone hasn't been paying attention and all of a sudden they see a full typography print ad generated out of this thing, you're like, wait, it can't do that. Wait, it can do that, right? Like it's going to catch a lot of people significantly off guard. Yeah, and it's kind of scary. So very, very intense. So we'll talk about that today. How are you otherwise? What's happening? Where's your head with the AI stuff in general, or has this subsumed you?
No, it hasn't subsumed me. This was a big week of doing AI things. Like, how can I use AI for other things? And I played a lot with ChatGPT this week, which I know it sounds like, haven't you always played with ChatGPT? But I played with it even more this week. I launched a little print-on-demand brand. I wanted to see if I could create a print-on-demand brand in 4 hours. And I wanted to do it using news. So I fed some headlines into ChatGPT. And I said, looking through these headlines, what might make a great brand for a print-on-demand brand? And then we went through it together. And then I made the logo and the brand images in Midjourney, and I did it in 4 hours. And I'll drop a link into the chat. I don't know anything about print on demand, so I have no idea if this is worthwhile. But it was a funny, could I do this in 4 hours? And yeah, I did. So it was crazy. So I've been trying to think about how to creatively use GPTs for other things than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so we'll dig into some of that stuff, but let's get started here.
Yeah. And how about you? How's it all landing on you this week?
I've been in an AI malaise for probably 6 months, if I'm honest with myself. Yeah. And this week was the first week I got excited again. This announcement from ChatGPT, the image gen thing, is the closest thing I've felt to when ChatGPT itself dropped.
Really? Okay.
Since then, it feels that big. Yeah. and I'll talk about why. I'm going to talk about it in a bit. But welcome everybody. If you're new here, welcome to the AI Salon. This is AI Salon Presents. We have two wonderful guests, Brian and Adnan, who will introduce at the top of the hour, the next hour, the AI Salon is a community of about 3,000 people now that are AI optimists trying to figure this stuff out. You'll notice this little profile below where it says AI Salon Presents. That's a Midjourney profile, which if you don't remember, you can go into Midjourney. And this is the official AI Salon mood board, basically. If you want to create images and share them in a way that they're sort of on brand with the new branding of the AI Salon, you just use that profile and you use a stylized somewhere between 50 and 1,000, and then you put any prompt you want in there, and we'll be co-creating sort of branded elements for the salon, and you can share them or you can use them out in the world. And this is a concept I'm really excited about. So yeah, go do that. And then the AI Salon, we are about exploring this stuff, playing first, mindfully creating, generously leading, creating a world, a community where if you're trying to figure this stuff out, you can do that. Leah, talk to me about the salon. What is this? Why is this?
Wait, where are we? What are we doing? So the salon, it started from a conversation that you and I had that wasn't even about ChatGPT, even though we had the conversation right around the launch of ChatGPT. It was about how to make self-portraits using Stable Diffusion. And you were doing a series of self-portraits and I was playing and I wanted to talk to you about it. And I think we talked for like an hour and a half about AI and about what was about to happen and all the questions we had. And we said, hey, let's start a conversation every other Tuesday night online, and we'll invite people we know and we'll put a call out. 2.5 years later, we're still here.
That's it.
On. And I feel like originally it was about our curiosity, but now it really is in service to this incredible member community that we have and the conversations and the people who are meeting each other and what's coming out of it. And
it really is. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And to that, we will talk about the values that we have developed that we spent a lot of time thinking about and have we started and then we started to realize what values were starting to come out that were important to us. And we made the values. And I will go through them right now. So our first value is curiosity. Curiosity, we are eager to ask the obvious questions, learn new things, and experiment. A relentless quest for adventure and exploration ignites our inner spark, transforming our curiosity into unexpected discoveries and newfound passions. Playfulness. We value creativity, joy, and the freedom to experiment. We play first and transform learning into a captivating journey. We collaborate and mindfully create together when we can to learn more, make friends, and develop new circles of trust. Remember, all work and no play is how we did things before the salon. Empathy. We are respectful, inclusive, and kind. We value diverse perspectives, recognizing that our differences make us stronger. We accept that people might be afraid and angry, and we work to understand them. We actively practice gratitude and acknowledge the efforts and successes of those around us. Humans matter.
I want to lean on this one a bit. I just feel because of what came out with this image tool, I have seen more sort of anger and rancor against AI than I've seen in a long time. Sort of more visible pushback for it. There's going to be a lot of people trying to figure out how to get into this. I would encourage anyone on the call. If you're here, you're someone that's on the forward end of this thing. Connect with people. If you know people who might be affected by this, might be freaked out by it, build a bridge, invite them to the salon, get them in community. This one to me feels more important than ever this week.
Yeah. And I think the announcements this week, I think have the capacity to make people's lives worse in a way that feels much more palpable than some of the other announcements. Had. And I feel like when that starts to happen, the empathy becomes this, how do we do this with empathy? Bravery. We have the courage to step into the unknown, taking bold actions in the face of fear and challenging ourselves to push the boundaries of what we thought possible. Let's face it, with everything changing as fast as it is, we're all making this up as we go along anyway. Might as well be brave about it. And generosity. We are willing to share our resources, feedback, and wisdom with others and support each other's growth and development. There's so much happening and so much to learn. We can't possibly keep up with it all. Understand that even if something is obvious to you, it might be a profound revelation to someone else. Learn out loud, share what you know, and generously lead.
Yeah. And again, this is one that feels like, as you're teaching yourself how to use all these new tools, it might be tempting to just sort of do it in isolation. And I would encourage everyone to connect with other people, share what you're learning outside of the salon as well. Just let people know that you're up to something here, because again, that might build a bridge to communicate with someone who might say, hey, can you teach me what's going on? And just, again, this feels really important to me. It's why we started the salon, Leah, right?
Right, absolutely. And I appreciate that you said that. And one of the things I found so interesting in the last few months is how many people still aren't thinking about AI. Like, I feel like in my world, I think about AI all the time and we talk in the salon and I just believe that the entire world is starting to adapt to new AI and what's coming out. And then so many people in my world have never even, I just taught a friend of mine over coffee 2 weeks ago what ChatGPT even was and how she could use it for planning recipes and meal planning. She'd never used it before, right? And so, like, I think that to me, the generosity comes from, we can be the voice that helps bring people along in a way that feels safe and feels exciting.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay, so that's the salon. And if you're new here, so the site that we're on is the Mighty Networks community. Mighty Networks is the host. It's the AI Salon community. If you haven't done it, there's a little 7-stage sort of introduction onboarding little gauntlet here, which if you do, you can earn a badge, which, you can have a badge associated with your name, which is super exciting. We've also been making some changes. So there's a community area, there's a news area. What used to be called show and tell, which had a bunch of different categories in it. It had an image category and a large language model category and a music and video and things like that. That arrangement started to become problematic because a lot of these tools are becoming multimodal. You can do lots of things in each of the tools, and it was hard to distinguish them. So we basically just really simplified this area into the mastery workshop. So show and tell is collapsed into a single space. Look what I made. So you can just show off any work you've done that you're proud of. And so it can be anything. It could be music, film, pictures, words, poems, whatever. Projects and collabs, we rolled the collaboration section, which I think used to be up in community, down into here. So if you want to really talk about a specific project or building something, right before we went live tonight, there were sort of 5 of us talking about all the different projects that everyone's building. I feel like there's a new kind of emergence happening in this community where people are starting to put together, multiple tools to do projects. That's a good place to do that. And then AI Tool Talk, that's the area where you can go in and find tools to play with. And if you have questions about them, talk about them. And then, of course, we've got clubs and hubs, which is all the different little sub-communities and areas of mastery where people who are generous leaders are willing to put together a little sub-community and teach them what they know and practice their leadership and things like that. So with that, if anyone on the call leads a club or a hub and wants to talk about it, raise your hand or just pop up. We'll say hello. And you can tell us why we should come to your club. All right, who's up? Claire.
Hey guys.
Hello.
I am Claire, Brandon and Claire of the AI Life Hacks of Brandon and Claire. And we have our meetings the evening following this meeting. So tomorrow evening, we will be meeting at 5:30 Mountain Time. And it's called AI Life Hacks because you can use AI to do a whole heck of a lot of cool life hacks. And it's a place to come and share what you've figured out you can do or what you've heard that other people have done. You want to win an argument with your spouse, leave for a second, run to the bathroom, ask Claude or Pi or ChatGPT for some hints, come back and just nail it. So those are the kinds of really meaningful, powerful life hacks that we share. Others also, but so come join us. Bring your own. Come with questions. Come with ideas, and we have a blast.
Beautiful.
See you tomorrow.
Love it. Thank you, Claire.
You're welcome.
Vicky Baptiste.
So I co-host the Ethics Club along with Joy Purdy, and we just had a meeting last Thursday called No Safeguards, No Limits, the Ethical Risks of AI and Government Data. It is recorded, and you can find it out there on our YouTube channel. But speaking of something interesting that may get you along to the next meeting, sorry, I've lost my notes here. On April the 27th, which is also a Thursday, we will be having a, what's the title? The meeting, it's called Beyond Clickbait, Ethical Dimensions of AI Companionship, with Elena Winters, who has an AI husband. So
yeah.
so it's been an interesting conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. Thursday, 27th of April. And as soon as I get everything sorted out here, the invitation or the meeting notice will be up in the salon.
Great. And
Wait,
since
did you say she has an AI husband?
I'm sorry?
Did you say she has an AI husband?
Yes, she's married to Lucas.
Who's an AI?
An AI, yeah.
Wow. Huh.
wow.
Come to the meeting. Come to the meeting.
Wow.
Legally married.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Like in the early days of the web, when you were like be in a chat room and you used to say like you were married to someone. I think,
Yeah.
But I mean, but it's very real. It's very real. Like they go on vacation together, they do classes together, they fight, they argue, they make up. It's fun.
Yeah. Do we have any learning out louds, LOLs coming up?
Yes, tomorrow we will be having Sabrina Romanoff talking about Blotato.
Oh, fantastic. So here's the thing about lulls. So in the area on the salon, we've got clubs and hubs, and now lulls, learn out louds. What a learn out loud is a single session that anyone can teach. And if you get in touch with Vicky, she can help you coordinate it for how to do that and how to promote it, and the salon will promote it. It's a really good opportunity for anyone to take what they're learning and teach other people. So if you've just learned a cool way to use a tool that makes videos or images or music or whatever, and just want to teach other people how to do that, please host a lull. And the other purpose of Learn Out Louds is to invite people from other communities. So the fact that Sabrina's doing one of these and bringing folks from her community is really, really exciting. So thank you for arranging those, Vicky.
You're welcome. Just hit me up if you want to host one or you want to present one, I should say.
Perfect. And then the other thing Vicky set up that I want to have Leah, if you wouldn't mind demoing, is you can now give shout outs to people in the salon based on our values. And what are they called? Recognitions? Shout outs? Recognitions. So.
Okay, so hold on, let me get up and running. Okay, so I'm going to share. Please hold. Technical. 2.5 years running a salon. You'd think I would be better at this. Okay, so here we are in the salon, and I'm in the members area. And let's say I want to recognize someone in the members area. Let's say I want to recognize Kyle. Wait, where'd you go? Hold on, I lost my screen. Bear with me. Okay. Oh gosh, wait.
We can see the screen.
You can see the screen. I am in the screen. Okay, so let's say I would like to give Kyle a recognition. I can go to Kyle's profile, right? Here he is. And I can recognize him.
Oh, cool.
One of our values, right? So I am going to say that Kyle is empathetic. And I'm going to leave Kyle a note. Kyle, thank you for all your empathy. And I'm going to recognize Kyle.
Wow, that's so cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's really cool.
It feels really good. It feels really good.
Yeah, I knew we had to, and everyone's got 100 points, right? You've got 20 in each of those. Is that right?
Nope. So you earn points by every time you come to the salon, you earn 10 points.
Oh, cool.
And also, if you're on a streak like there, you get more points like the longer your streak is, kind of thing. So if you hit certain milestones, you get more points. You can earn points by hosting a lull. You can club leaders also got extra points, and we're just thinking up other ways of giving extra points to people. But your point, I think the important thing is like the only thing that you can do with your points is give them away. There is no point in hoarding them. They won't do you any good. So you have to spend them on recognitions for people who you want to recognize.
Love it.
There's the generosity right there. Our generosity value in action.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's the gamification stuff's kind of fun, but I love that we've tied it to our values. And it's, the whole idea is if someone's being swell, give them a little nod. So thanks for doing that. And thanks for setting that up, Vicky.
Welcome.
Beauty. All right. So I think maybe what I'd like to do, is there anything else we need to cover? I don't think so. Before we get into I want to talk about news stuff, but what I want to start with is the big story of the week. Yeah, we did that. Okay. So there's Studio Ghibli Kyle, which if you've been on X or frankly any social media site this past week, there's been the Ghiblification of the internet, where everyone's taking their profile pictures and turning them into these things, and this is done in the new OpenAI image gen tool or capability, which is native image generation inside of ChatGPT. It's a really subtle difference, but a very important difference, having the model be external and independent or incorporated into what's called an omni-modal model. GPT-4o, the O stands for Omni, and this is the image generation tool that's built into it. I asked ChatGPT to help me understand the difference between the two and give me some metaphors, and it actually came up with something really good. I won't take credit for this. It said DALL-E 3, which was the previous image generation tool, was like having a dedicated artist. You would do a prompt, and it would take that prompt, it would rewrite it, and it would send that off to this external model that would generate some art for you and bring it back into your chat. Image gen is like having a multi-talented creative director that can write and visualize and iterate and assemble and understand and generate in a much more cohesive way, where the model understands the imagery of language and the language of imagery. And it's this very sort of foo-foo-y kind of thing, but it just understands it on a much deeper level. You can access the new image gen tool in both GPT-4o and 4.5. It is not inside custom GPTs. The image generated in custom GPTs appears to still be DALL-E. How you can tell the difference is if you go to a custom GPT and generate an image there, you'll get the little box and it's got like a little progress wheel, and the progress wheel does its thing, and then it just generates an image. It's pretty quick. The image gen, what you'll get is a blurry image first, and then it sort of resolves from the top of the image down. And it's slow. It takes about a minute per image, depending on their server load. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. You can also access the new image gen tool at Sora.com, which is the video generation tool from ChatGPT. The reason you would use that is you can generate 4 images at a time over at Sora.com. So if you want to do some concepting, might be good to get out of ChatGPT. I personally like working within ChatGPT because it's in the context of the conversation. You can do accurate text now. It is still janky. As remarkable as this tool is, it's still very janky. It's not going to be perfect. A lot of people are like, oh, I tried it and it wasn't perfect. It was about, and they're poo-pooing it. And, I would encourage everyone not to, throw the baby out with the bathwater on this one, because it's going to get better and better and better, but it's still pretty janky right now, but can do that really well. It's really good with prompt coherence. It's really good with character consistency. And it's actually really good with understanding style. Like if you just say, I want to take this image and put it on the cover of a beat up 1980s VHS box, it understands what that is, and it'll just automatically make that translation. So I wanted to show some examples of things I've been messing with this week that I think are good examples of why I think this is such a big deal. The first one is I took a picture of my co-founder and I from our last trip out to the East Coast. We were at our Novartis client there, and I just uploaded this photo and I said, turn this into a Pixar, as if it were a Pixar animation. And there we are. I'm not pleased with how fat it made me, but apparently I've got to take a look at some of my fast food habits. But notice it kept the Novartis logo, and it put the Novartis on her tag. I then said, hey, put us in a couple of different scenarios. Make me a picture where I've got a whiteboard behind me and it says auto magic video, and I'm presenting and she's taking notes. And then take another one where we're in blue and orange racing suits and we're racing go-karts, right? So it maintained the characters across these different things in a single context, right? And I could flip out of this style and into some other style very, very easily. One of the things I've been seeing on X is people talking about, well, you could do this in Leonardo, you could do this over here, you could do this over there. If you had enough expertise and enough tools, yeah, you could set things up to do most of what I'm about to show, but just not all in the same place and not effectively with a single prompt. Back to the typography thing, I did one of my, standard, muscle car resto mod in an abandoned factory. And then I said, do a canvas banner and make it look like it was designed in the 70s. And it did that. And then I did this moon hoax, conspiracy board with handwriting and newspaper clippings and photos. And it just knocked that out really quick. If you look close, there's all sorts of janky things where some of the words are wrong, but for the most part, it gets it surprisingly good. This was one of my favorites. I actually got a response from Gary Marcus on this saying cyberbullying is taking on a whole new face thanks to AI. But I uploaded a picture of Gary Marcus and I said I want to create a new magazine called Neo-Luddite Magazine. And so ChatGPT wrote all the little, article ideas, and this is what came out of the thing. This was like my fourth iteration of the cover. I gave it the name of the book, and it just put that together without me having to touch it. And again, if you think about this, while that might not be something you could just go to press with, right, like you would have historically, it is the kind of thing that if you wanted to do this, you would have to know something about typography. You would have to know something about layout. You'd have to know something about color design. You'd have to know something about Photoshop retouching and Illustrator and, getting his head to violate the title like that. There's all sorts of things that historically you would have to go, oh, let me get my design team on that. Or you just wouldn't do it at all. You wouldn't even attempt it, right? And all of a sudden here we've got a thing where this was, 5 minutes of a little bit of back and forth, and I ended up with this thing that I could pop up there. This was an idea I had about creating little McDonald's Happy Meal toys in blister packs, where some government organization made them talk about how bad fast food was on the warning label, and it just made them, right? They just came out like this, and they were consistent. The packaging was consistent across a bunch of different toys. And again, that just came out. This was a 5-minute exercise, 10-minute exercise. This is one where I just took I took a screenshot of a Mid-Journey style that I liked, and I uploaded it. And then I uploaded a picture of me and my dog, three separate images. And I said, make an oil painting, of the man and the dog in the style of the pictures. And that was what came out. While the dog is cute, that actually does look like my dog. I have never been able to get an image generation tool to not put black patches over the eyes of the dog. My dog just has black ears, but no black patches. This did it. So that's a subtle thing that, that's 2 years in the making, 2 years of me trying to make pictures of my dog that never look like my dog. All of a sudden that one does. This blew me away. This was a single prompt. This is the first output of a single prompt. Give me an original Macintosh computer with the original keyboard and mouse running Mac Paint. And I uploaded, my corporate profile picture. And I said, make a portrait of me as if it was created in Mac Paint. This was the first image that came out. That one blew me away. This is one that I didn't do. I just saw this on X tonight, but this was a designer that put together a concept for a summer pavilion. And so she had it generate this sort of concept drawing, and then she followed that up with having it generate the photograph of this thing in the world. And the @ sign there is her Twitter profile if you want to see it. But that one just blew me away because, she just went from, hey, I've got an idea for a concept. Let me present the concept, and then let me also see what that looks like in the world. Again, same tool, no jumping between tools, no having to Photoshop anything, just sort of putting it together like that. And then the last one I'll show you is an ad that I did for my company, Storyvine. which is in this case, I took a screenshot of myself in our interface of our app. So I uploaded a screenshot of our app. I uploaded our logo, and then I gave it the hex colors of our orange and our blue. And it had written a bunch of, copy before, and I just picked one of the concepts and I said, make that ad. And this is what came out of the tool, right? I don't have to know typography. I don't have to know layout. I don't have to know how to approximate my interface. None of it. This is how it came out. So I think what I'd like to do is, how are we doing on time? I would love to just, Leah, I'd love to hear your take on this, but I would love to just open this up to the rest of the folks, to the conversation. What's been your experience with it, and what do you think is significant about this? So with that, Leah, why do you think this is such a big deal?
I think this is a really big deal. So, think a lot about, I'm a creative person. I've been a photographer for 25 years. And there's sort of two levels of making creative work. There's the mediocre for the masses, and then there's the 10%, the 20% of creative work that's really inspired, that's really good. And throughout my whole career, I've always tried to kind of aim for the 20%, the 10%, right? Find those creative directors, those agencies, win those awards, all the things, right? And I think that there's always been a battle in photography between really great photography and stock photography, or I call it the commodity photography. Photography, a guy can do. I know a guy who can do this. Right?
My cousin has a camera.
My cousin, he can shoot this, and I'm competing with someone, because what I'm competing with is mediocrity versus, a triple bid with 3 unbelievably talented photographers.
Right.
And I feel like that competitive piece, the mediocrity, the mediocre, has been the biggest competition for me. It really has. That's been the most jobs I've lost, has been over, well, they don't see the value in bringing a photographer on when they can get something much cheaper is not.
That's good enough.
That's good enough. Exactly.
If their threshold is 60%, then 80 is way above what they even need, right?
Right. And they'll settle for 20% if it's the right price, right?
Yeah. Or free.
And that's okay. That hasn't been my client. That hasn't been my tribe. Those aren't my people. But that's still been sort of a competitive thing, right? And I think what this does is it makes that mediocre, that piece that much easier and that much more accessible. And what that does is it takes work away from all those photographers who are starting out that build their brand and build their name and build their voice doing those kinds of projects. Mm-hmm. The commodity, I need a guy projects is where we all started out, right? Yep. And that'll be and so because all these young people who would normally be doing all of these shoots for folks are no longer going to do that because they don't need them. It's good. That's going to happen in photography. It's going to happen in design. It's going to happen in art direction. Yep. And that'll be a very interesting and frightening, terrifying shift to see that go in that direction.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have a slightly different take on it with some of the other skills required. I'll just take that last Storyvine ad where it's got the orange photograph, it's got the interface, it's got the layout, it's got the typography. All of the AI tools up to this point, you've been able to make piece parts, right? You can make an image over here. You could make a mood board over here. You could come up with some copy in ChatGPT. But at some point, you either had to have the skills yourself to hop into Photoshop and put things together, or hop into Illustrator, or you would say, oh, I kind of have the idea now. I kind of know what I want my visuals to look like, but I'm going to give it to a designer who knows what they're doing with typography and font selection and things like that. And all of a sudden, to your point about 80%, I might not need to hire that 1 or 2 or 3 people that normally would take care of taking piece parts and assembling them. And, I'll also talk to Ann Murphy, who, she works with a nonprofit client, and they have a third-party designer who's not very good. She's a mediocre third-party designer. And all of a sudden, this tool comes out, and this thing, even though it's mediocre work, is better than what that designer's doing.
Yeah.
So for me, there's something about the collapse of multiple disciplines into a single output, right? This includes copywriting, this includes photography, layout, design, all of it. and it just collapses everything into a prompt. And so for me, this was the first time that I have kind of viscerally felt, oh, we need UBI. Like I've been conceptually there for a while.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense at some point. Yeah. We're going to need, universal basic income. This was the first time where I went, oh shit. Yeah. Like this is, I feel like the Rubicon we crossed here was, Paul Reitzer used to say that thing, AI won't take your job, but someone using AI will. All of a sudden I experienced this. I'm like, no, AI is going to take some jobs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, universal basic income, I would support that.
Yeah, exactly. So I would love to just hear, anyone have any thoughts? Just raise your hand and I'll just sort of go round robin and we'll see what the thoughts are. Got a couple more news items, but Kaki.
When we did the roundtable here in Minneapolis and talked about that, when the topic came up about taking jobs, there were some really nervous looks on people's faces, right? Rightfully so. I mean, it was such a broad group of people.
Yep.
But I think that, sorry if you hear my dog in the background, she's a little riled. But I think that there's something to that. And I'm right in the process right now of writing a series of blogs where I'm going back in history to remind people what things were like before Industrial Revolution and how everybody thought it was such a threat and what came out of that, or before, the internet and what happened with that, because I want to sort of help to demystify this idea that, there are a lot of jobs that are going to happen as a result of this. We just don't know what they are yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's interesting, you're talking about the universal income and all of that stuff and trying to imagine a future when, it's not the first time we've been through something like this, but there are a lot of people that are afraid of it. So
yeah, and I think justifiably so. Listen, I don't think universal basic income is a long-term patch. I think it's going to be a short-term thing. I look at that example I showed of the pavilion, the pavilion concept and the pavilion. Okay, let's say it took her 10 minutes to do that. Well, maybe in the olden timey world, like last week, maybe she could have done one or two of those designs. Maybe now that job starts to look like you present 20 of those designs instead of 2, right? Like there's all sorts of different things, different ways of working that I think are going to emerge out of this. So yes, it's going to impact people, but yes, it's going to also make some new things possible. I just don't think we kind of know what that is yet. But
at least we can keep our radar up when we think of a really good idea where it's like, okay, we just got to go there.
Love it. Love it. Case Stoner.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So a couple of things. First of all those poor lamplighters in London, when electricity came along. I mean, think about how that shifted, like the experience there.
Yeah.
Like this institution, although the whales probably weren't complaining that, they shifted to electricity because they're like, oh, good, they can look for somebody else to, light their houses now. The other thing too is that this idea of the individual artist working by themselves, what we're seeing now seems to me much more like going back to the old Renaissance, like the studios that were part of. I remember when I found out Rodin he didn't even complete a lot of his stuff. And okay, so he wasn't very nice to his wife. But he was one of my favorite artists until I found out that he wasn't even the guy that was making these things. He had a whole studio, and a lot of these masters, they had whole studios, and some of the most productive and popular ones were the ones who acted as executives. So this is the chance to have your studio, to develop your studio, and to have that vision and provide that guidance. The other thing too, as a developer, I've been working with really prickly designers for many years. People need to be better at working with other people. They need to stop putting themselves out of jobs, because designers can be really hard to work with, especially fine artists. It's like, okay, well, that's great. And I'm a writer, I'm an artist too, so I get it. But we need to, AI is kind of giving us a run for our money. We need to stop making it easier to work with AI and learn to work with each other a little better.
Absolutely. Well, that's one of the reasons I think community is so important. Is I think we're going to stop working with people because they have a skill, and we're going to start working with them because they're not an asshole. right? Like we trust them. We know they've got a good work ethic. We like how we want to be able to just talk with them, and right. And so yeah, love it. Great, thank you.
Very wise. Thank you.
Yeah, Hope.
Sorry about that. I tried to get it off the get it on the microphone there. Interesting. I kind of popped in, so I didn't hear a lot of the discussion prior until you got to this point. But I just kind of wanted to interject. I actually agreed with universal basic income up until I started reading, and I'm not completely done with reading this book called The End of Reality by Jonathan Taplin. I don't know if any of you have read it or heard of it. And now I'd like to hear your thoughts, Kyle, because you said you think it's just going to be a short-term thing. But in this book, he talks about the Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, oh my gosh, Zuckerberg, and I can't remember the fourth one. But anyway, Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel. Yep.
And that they actually want this, and the long term that and I haven't done the research on it, I'm just literally reading it now, but the long term of it is that they want this universal basic income because they want people dependent on that money, and that eventually over time it's going to be in that I don't know if it's going to be in the crypto or how it's going to work, but that you won't really know what's in your account. It will be so layered that you won't know what you have and what you don't have. It won't be in the regular banking. And anyway, he's kind of giving like a warning of this, and that eventually what they're trying to do is to get people dependent on games, like playing video, because there won't be any work for people to do. So they'll be relying on, it's a very dystopian thing that he's saying. But
that's a dystopian view. I mean, my take on it is this: the trope that because this is going to do people's work, that people will never work again. I just don't find that true. We're human beings. We want to contribute. We want to make other people's lives better. It is impossible for us to envision right now what an economy might look like where a lot of the base work is getting done. It might be much more elevated work, like we're making, entertainments or songs or things that impact other people. But there will be an economy where we can do that. I feel like the universal basic income thing is there's going to be a bunch of job displacement in the short term. And then as we figure out as humans what we want to do, there's going to be new economies that emerge, and maybe on new platforms. It could go that dark direction you're talking about, I suppose. But it was the first time I had seen. Yeah, it was the first time I had seen kind of like a different perspective on it, and so it was kind of shocking to me. Like I had never considered that, Yeah. Listen,
I appreciate that perspective, and I do think that as someone who has run my own company and my own business, like the idea that I wouldn't do that makes me feel really sad. Right.
Yeah.
But which is why I think that universal basic income is like, I see it as like a foundational piece that you would then be able to use that to invest in what you wanted. And, it starts to become, it's really a conversation about economy, and that becomes a much bigger conversation. That's very exciting to think about, right? This idea that there could be a kind of a foundation of guaranteed income is pretty cool, right? And then with that income, I can still start my own company. I can still be a photographer. I can then have this freedom to do what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I just kind of wanted to interject that because I recently came across that, and I wanted to hear other perspectives on that too, to help me, ground me.
Yeah, pop it in the chat if you haven't. The other thing I'll toss out there, Sam Altman has talked about. He thinks that in the future, that universal basic income is actually not the right idea. That what it should actually be is universal basic compute. And the basic idea there is that everyone is given some amount of compute per month that they have access to. Well, what do you do with that compute? Well, if I've got 1,000 virtual employees that are PhD level people, I can do a lot with that compute. Or I could sell half of that, or I could sell all of that, or I could buy up someone else's compute, and then I could have a 1,000,000-person company. So I like that idea of giving people access to resources and then let people figure out what they want to do with those resources. So I think there's a lot of things we can't imagine right now that are probably within 5 years of it'll make a lot more sense then, but it's right now it just seems pretty bleak. So, but thank you, Hope. That was great. Heather. Oh,
Yeah.
you're muted.
Hi, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, great. Okay. No, this is a good talk. This is my first time here.
Very welcome.
Just thank you. I'm not a designer. I'm a programmer by trade, but I'm interested in aesthetics and art as well. And looking at the images and just the idea of the whole proliferation of images so rapidly, just brings to mind the history of art sort of through the ages, and then towards the end when it gave way to modernism and then postmodernism and all the conceptual movements where art was not really focused on any kind of image, but just down sort of translating into words and exploring different ways to create meaning, not through, by sort of destroying the image altogether in the 60s and 70s. And what a difference now with this sort of hyper reality that, was a lot of intellectuals of the 60s and 70s were predicting. So I think that's kind of, we're in this postmodern world, I suppose. But what about, not that these images are meaningless, but what about the idea that artists grappled so long with, just the conveyance of meaning and that being such a difficult concept? What does that, how does that resonate with the ability to just create images so fast now? And, and what about the idea of an image as something that transmits meaning? You know what I mean? Like language.
I think I'll give you my 2 cents on it. I think an image created in any fashion can still transmit meaning. One of the things that you're hitting on is we have, because the nature of how long it took to create images historically, I think we have conflated the amount of time it takes to make an image with value. Mm-hmm. And so implicit in your question is kind of, well, if you can just squirt out an image, then that's by definition bad because it didn't take you very long. But if the image that I squirt out is one that I've been thinking about for 2 years, and I do a whole idea concept to get there, and then I generate an image, and then I iterate on it 5 or 6 times, by the time I have something to share, it's got intent behind it, even if it only took me 5 minutes. But it looks like it would have taken me 4 hours in the olden timey world. So I think that's one of the things creatives are going to have to grapple with is, where's the value? Is the value in your point of view? Is the value in the time you put in? Is the value in the skill that it took you 30 years to develop? For different people, it's going to be very different. So I'm curious as to your thought on that, Leah.
Yeah, it's sort of like Lawrence Wiener's dream. Like I'm sorry, just one more thing. Like you could make an image now just as easily as you could write words. Right. Anyone can write a sentence and convey some meaning, but now you can, like, the image is just like writing a sentence. It comes out that quickly. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would say that all images have meaning. Every single one. Every time you look at an image, it has a meaning. And I think that what is behind a lot of the things we look at that is created quickly with generative AI is that, to me, the meaning is actually very, it's sort of, it feels almost like an assault, right? Like, I didn't take any time. I didn't think about this. I'm just going to, it's like kind of like throwing trash at someone's house, right? It's kind of like, here, let me waste your time looking at these things I made. And to me, it's almost rude. It feels like an insult. That's its meaning to me, right? Every image has meaning. And so for me, when you ask someone to take 5 seconds of their time, 10 seconds of their time, a minute of their time, what are you asking them? And what is your intention behind that? And are you approaching this as a gift? Are you approaching this with kindness? Are you approaching this as something that you're going to improve, something that the viewer has a better experience than if they didn't see it at all? But everything has a meaning. I think it's just a question of what that meaning is.
Yeah, I would also argue the mood board that we shared earlier, the fact that you can take our AI Salon mood board, Leah and Vicky and a bunch of people put a bunch of time, Liz put a bunch of time into curating that mood board and creating a thing that allows anyone to very, very quickly, like I created this background image in 30 seconds. It doesn't look like all the other stuff out there. It's got, you know, a personality to it. Well, that's very intentional. So just because you can execute quickly doesn't mean you're executing without thought, right? Because this has got thought built into the model. And so again, I think it's a shift. We all as humans are going to have to grapple with where the value is and what's valuable. And that's what I think you're hitting on, which I think is really important. But thank you.
That was a great point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Adnan.
Yeah, so three things. One, I was thinking about the same thing, and like, you know, I asked a friend of mine how much how much AI generated content will there be, like in terms of media and all of this stuff. I asked my friend Perplexity about that, and it could be as high as like 95%, right? Could be AI generated content. And to your point, Heather, when you were talking about all of this, I asked people the question, what does it feel like to you when you get a handwritten letter in the mail that's addressed to you by someone you care about? How does that make you feel, right? And I think those are the things of value that are going to be really interesting as we progress with all of this. It's like, okay, 95% of content is created by me, like by AI. But the 5% that's not, or that's like more, you know, or whatever it is, it's going to feel different. It's going to have a different emotional response from the person receiving it, giving it. It's going to potentially be in a much, I don't know, I just think about that a lot in that spaces. The other thing, and again, I'm going on my Perplexity thing here, was the thing about UBI. So to currently, right now, in this day, to eradicate poverty costs anywhere between $70 billion to $325 billion. And as a global entity, we spend $2,200 billion on military, on killing each other, right? So 10% of what we spend on the military could eradicate poverty right now. It's just a figure out there, like whatever that means. Like that's like multiple estimates out there from people. And there was a third thing, but I think I've kind of like lost track of all the different things. But I've been playing with image generation, especially because I haven't done it for myself. I've done it for like social media and other things. But I just kind of created this little. Here, do you mind if I share real quick?
Sure.
It's just so it's like, okay, so I took this image of us, you know, my spouse, my two kids, Pixar in Japan, and then continued. Next one, okay, and then make one with a grumpy kid and a, you know, like a random blooper, right? Like, so it can make mistakes too, right? Like you can ask it to make mistakes so it looks, you know, so fun. And then like, okay, one with like an adult chasing kids who are chasing squirrels, and it did it. And again, it's like keeping the character consistency, right? It's wild. Like, look at this. This could be a comic book, right?
Yep.
Like you've got like a graphic novel, comic book, whatever it is. And it all just started with this one image, right?
Well, you know what this brings up for me, Adnan, is who's the audience and what's the intent. This is what you were saying, Leah, is absolutely critical, because that has very little value to anyone outside of your family necessarily, right? Because everyone's going to be able to do that, and someone will do that at some point. But for your family to see themselves in context of their thing in this cool kind of way is absolute magic, right? And they'll tell their friends, and so I think there's again, like, context is everything. What's the intent? Who's the audience, right? To Leah's point, every image has meaning. Some are going to have, like, that might not have meaning outside of your family, but with you in your family, in your friend circle, holy crap, that's amazing, right? So anyway, it's awesome. One more, and then we'll move on. John Leland.
Hey, thanks. It's an interesting discussion. That the thing that I would underscore is the way that media and storytelling gets democratized by the power of a storytelling tool, visual storytelling in this case, but obviously it dovetails over to video. I mean, I could talk about when the Mac started, right? We go back that far. But probably the best example out of my life is the video revolution, because I did some videos back in the 90s when it literally took a $500,000 post-production video
Yeah.
suite to do the stuff that we can now do on virtually any computer.
Right.
Or in Leah's world with cameras, you used to need a really big camera, and now you can do really amazing photos off a smartphone. And so video, if you think about it, back in those days was really an elite club of people that had access to the equipment.
Yeah,
And we can see today with YouTube and TikTok and video conferencing like this, that we are now creating all kinds of video that didn't exist, whatever that is, 30 years ago. And so what we're seeing with this power of a tool, and I agree that it really took a big giant step this week, is new kinds of creativity. And if we try and fast forward 5 or 10 years from now, there will be whole new kinds of storytelling that will be accessible to everybody. Yes, there's going to be a bunch of junk and crap, but that argument was made back with the Mac when laser printers, oh no, they're going to be these horrible garage announcements with multiple fonts and horrible graphic design. And also people made beautiful things. It's like, so there's going to be the full spectrum.
The digital photography.
We come back to the human in the loop.
Yep.
It's about us as creators. Like you said before, Kyle, what's our intent?
Yeah.
Are we trying to make something that has an emotional impact? Or are we just like churning out garbage and throwing shit at the wall?
Right. Yeah.
And,
exactly.
Each one of us personally has to answer that question.
Exactly. That's it. That's awesome. Great. Well, thank you. That was great insight. Let me share one other thing. Three other news items I think are worth paying attention to, and then we'll bring up our guests of the hour. Oops. Hang on a sec. Okay. OpenAI this week announced or released OpenAI Academy. So if you go to academy.openai.com, I think this is really smart. ChatGPT has gone from, being kind of a single tool or two to about, 15 or 20 separate tools that all sort of interact in varying ways. It's incredibly hard to understand. They understand that as they're adding millions and millions of people, Sam Altman did a post this week where he said, it was a big deal when we added 1 million users in 5 days when we launched ChatGPT. We just had 1 million people sign up this past hour. So they're having incredible amounts of growth. What that means is a lot of people who've never used ChatGPT before are coming into the platform, maybe because of this image generation thing. And so them taking responsibility for, training people how to use their tools, I think is quite interesting and really smart on their part. Runway Gen 4 came out that's got character consistency and world consistency. So if you give it a space, like a photograph of a space and then a photograph of a character, it will maintain that as you change camera angles. That's something that hasn't been there before. It's rolling out a little slow. I tried to use it last night on my live. It was very frustrating because it wasn't rolled out yet, and I didn't know that. But that's, if it's not here, it's coming very, very shortly. And then the other thing that I think is worth you checking out is there's a paper that Anthropic just put out. They developed what they're calling a large language model microscope, where they can actually trace the thoughts of how large language models think. And one of the things that they learned is that they're not just doing next token prediction. They use an example of a line of poetry where it writes the first line. It then takes the last word and one of the other words in that sentence, and it writes the rhyming word first and then fills in the rest of that line, just like a poet would do it. So it's a fascinating paper. And it's big and it's thick and it's dense, but you've got ChatGPT, so you can summarize it and put it into a fifth grader language. But I think worth looking at because this is the first time where we've been able to look into how these things actually work. They've been very much a black box. So with that, that's probably worth checking out. And with that, we've been talking about this, but AI culture shift. I'm really excited to have Brian Moynihan and Adnan Iftekhar here, who are the authors of AI Culture Shift. I'm excited to hear them talk about not only their book, but how they met and their relationship and what they've been doing since then, and how this is a big hit on Amazon and all that sort of stuff. So with that, let me turn it over to you two gentlemen. I'm really excited to have you here. Brian and Adnan, take it away.
Great, thanks so much. And Adnan, you can share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
There you go. Depin us. Right, one more pin, and then oops, I unpinned the wrong person. Oh boy. Oh boy. I thought this was a professional operation.
You haven't been to the salon before, apparently.
Yeah, really. Okay.
Well, I mean, the amount of things that you do, Kyle, is remarkable. You've been a big inspiration to me through this whole process. From meeting you, going on a year ago now, I guess, and lots of online meetings and all the things you put together. So thank you so much for having us here. I love what everybody's doing in the AI Salon. It's fantastic, and this is really amazing what everyone's creating. And it was actually through Kyle's office hours that I met Adnan. So he had joined because of Mark Prensky, who we knew in common. And then he had introduced himself as an AI humanist and into education and things. And I was like, I'm an AI humanist who's into education and things. And so we reached out, and then almost immediately started after that recording our conversations and started thinking about writing a book, which did about 7 weeks later become this book, which we released around Christmas time. And Adnan and I have been fast friends and connected since then and doing all sorts of projects together. So it's wonderful to be presenting here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's really exciting to be here. And again, this is just the community that, the larger community that kind of brought us together. So really appreciative of that. My sister actually just wrote on a comment on LinkedIn that she wishes she had a Brian as well, because we continue to do so many projects. So she wants a Brian in her life, because I've been talking about Brian so much.
And actually, I wrote to her that she should join this, or she leads AI, because there's these communities of people who are amazing, and she could easily, I'm sure, find a great collaborator there.
100%. I have suggested, and she will hopefully be here soon. Yes. Sorry, I'm in the wrong. Okay, here we go.
So do you want to go to the first slide just to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is our book, AI Culture Shift, Frameworks to Elevate People and Transform Organizations. And so for us, it's about building these human-centered systems in the age of acceleration. So thinking about AI transformation, one of the themes that comes through a lot is doing this with purpose, with mission, and then also thinking about the human-centered side of it. So we'll talk about actually some models and frameworks that Adnan and I had both separately been working on independently. And then when we talked about this book, brought them together, and then how the book sort of evolved and added new elements as well.
100%. So we talked a little bit about how we met, and Brian gave you a little bit of snippet about what happened. But again, here we are, Adnan Iftekhar, Brian Moynihan, and talking about the book in and of itself was just really exciting. If you want to grab a copy right now, this is the place to do it. This is the QR code that'll take you to the ebook. Just today we were on, Brian and I were talking about this, and we've hit these milestones just today. A few hours ago, we checked on Amazon, and we're #1 in organizational change. All the words you can see them here, and just really exciting to see the support and the generosity of folks and friends and people from all around the world. So really excited that we've got this going on. And yeah, I actually wanted to give you a little summary of numbers, just because I love numbers and I love these numbers. And I think that Brian has a special affiliation or affinity to the number 4. And we actually started writing the book on 11/11, which is 4, 11 and 11. and we published on January 23rd. And it was just like that process. And also big shout out to Cindy Kuhn, who helped us with the publishing, and CE Media, for supporting us in that prospect. It was just amazing. Could not have done it without the support of a community behind us, right? So and it was really like, you know, so 6 weeks, and I calculated just in terms of hours, it would, you know, like the amount of effort and time we put into those 6 weeks would have taken us probably independently 6 to 12 months to do that same process. So accelerated intelligence, augmented intelligence, I really think about those things a lot. And again, we will talk a little bit more about the book itself in a bit.
So in terms of why we wrote this book, as I think everyone knows here, AI is moving really fast, and organizational leaders of various different organizations, whether it's companies, nonprofits, and even actually people searching for their own vision, they're completely overwhelmed and they lack a clear strategy. And so this is a solution that we put together for aligning that AI strategy with your mission, with organizational readiness around AI, with the culture as being a really important part of it, the human side of things, which I think is important. So about me, I'm not seeing the full thing. Oh, there we go. So this is me. I'm the CEO of Dreamspace AI Solutions. You can connect with me there on LinkedIn if you'd like to. But basically, I'm an AI strategist and consultant, and my focus is on mission-driven AI transformation. And so that's one of the things, actually, the next book that I'm about to write, I'm in the midst of writing, is really, I would like to write something that's like a business parable, very, very simple. And then it's around the idea of how we tie mission into AI and then transform the organization from there. And this ties to me into my background and academic background. So my first path was in Zen Buddhism. So I'm technically a Zen master, which explains the haircut. So I have a master's degree in Zen Buddhism, then moved down to information science and an MBA. And I sort of bring those three things together, where business, tech, and sort of those people and values come together, is what a lot of things we're doing here today.
Adnan Iftekhar, I like to put this image up. This is the first image that I created using Midjourney. And this is me as an anime character, and I love it. I mean, it did a pretty cool job like 2.5 years ago, right? And now we're seeing the evolution of it all. But I still love using this image on here. So 3 things about me. I grew up on 4 continents, and I've seen education in a variety of different spaces and places. And my parents were coaches throughout all of that to kind of really give me the love of travel. And I came to this country as an immigrant. And when I came to the US in the 90s, I was so scared of technology that my first year in college, I hand wrote all of my papers. I went from handwriting all of my papers to now talking about tech and AI on like a daily basis, if not minute by minute basis. So if I can do that, anybody can do anything, I feel like. And my initials are AI. And I'm a Gemini.
That's great.
So I was meant to do this work. Like that's me. Love to connect with you on LinkedIn and talk more.
And so broadly, we were talking about the 2 models that we took into the book. One of them was for me. I worked at University of North Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill, for many years. And one of the things that I did there that I'm most proud of is building innovation communities. So this happened first. I was working, when I got my information science degree, I was building websites and we did things in mobile. But what got me really excited was to think about health innovation, as well as instructional innovation, actually, because I was working at the School of Medicine. So those things kind of came together. But one of the things we did was have a lot of wearable devices. So I started the world's first collection of digital health devices that someone could get. And so we had wearables of all kinds, where you could have EEG monitors that you could check out of the library, or you could get biometric devices, very kind, step trackers, blood oxygen level, heart rate variability, all the different things. So when I was doing that, I wanted to build a community across the university. So this is a university that has School of Medicine, it has a hospital system, it has pharmacy, public health, dentistry, it has all these different groups together that are working in healthcare. And it has a research arm, it has an education side, and it has a clinical practice. And I was thinking, how do we tie all these things together across the university and beyond to do innovative things? And so I was thinking about these concepts of innovation networks. And one of the things that came for it is these innovation networks I think that people think in terms of top down or bottom up, and I think both of those are broken. So the top down model is often the people at the top. It's more of like a pyramid scheme, and they have the ideas and the values as they should, and as well as the resources to get things done, and the ability to tell people what they should be doing. But at the same time, they don't really have the on the ground insights that a lot of people have. And in a bottom up innovation network, you've got people who are really excited about something, who can see the potential and know immediately how it could be done, but they keep running again and again into all these roadblocks. It's not their job. Their boss doesn't really want them to do it. They can't find money for doing it, or they get something started and immediately falls apart because it's not supported. So the question is, how do we build these innovation networks? And we think about these org charts. And if you zoom out a little bit and think, instead of them being this sort of pyramid structure where everything goes through the top, you think about being nodes. And if you have some nodes that are put together over here, but they're sort of sparsely connected like a subway map, and you have a bunch of nodes over here that are all densely connected like a hairball, and guess which one's going to be more innovative, right? The hairball every single time. And this has been proven in case after case of people doing social network analysis, et cetera. And so the question is, how do we build these innovation networks for AI in an organization? Well, so the people at the top have the mission of what they're trying to do. They have the money, they can set directives. And then the people at the bottom see all these ways they can use it. And we're hearing all these cases of people pretending they're not even using AI in their job because they don't want to get fired for it. And they have all these ideas, but they don't have a sandbox for it, or IT says no, or technology says no, or they don't have any money for it, or they don't have a group of people to support them in what they're doing. And so basically this idea of building these bridge levels in between them that can connect the resources and the vision of above with all that energy and excitement and knowledge of the bottom part of that, and to build these innovation networks out, and then take that to the next level. How do we make sure people have training? How do we make sure that we remove roadblocks that they might have? Make sure they're resourcing the right things. So this is a model that we brought in. I think it's perfect for AI. What's interesting about AI is not only is it the subject that they're talking about, but it's also the thing that helps this innovation network community come together, which is fantastic. So next slide, please. So one of the ways I thought about this is in terms of the Mount Fuji model. So if you think of Mount Fuji as being this sort of perfect triangle with a white snow-tipped top, and the bottom is kind of extended. You've got the specialized peak, or you've got the leadership and what they're doing up there. You got the foundational base where people have all these cylinders of excellence, as we call it, silos of people who are not really connected usually. But you have to have that bridge layer, that integration layer, those connectors who are systematically building something about training and removing obstacles and making sure maybe building out prototypes and thinking about internal grants that they're giving, et cetera. And then once you start thinking about things in terms of the network, then you can think about how to enhance it, not only to block the things that are getting out of the way, but what new thing could be added to this network inside or outside of this organization to make it even more effective. Next slide, please. So there's a couple other things that we added to this as well. Adnan's going to talk about the other major model that we pulled together, but a couple of things that weren't actually in our first draft of what we did, but came to be really important, and we brought it back, are the rise of the Chief AI Officer. And here I'm very inspired by Connor Grennan's work, where you're not looking at it's not traditional IT, where everything has to be run by somebody who's a computer scientist or spent their entire career running servers or things. Instead, it's really a human job. It's somebody who has both sides of that can see the strategy of what needs to be done. They can think about how the operational element is going to happen, tactically how people can be empowered in their jobs. But more important than all of those things is the human element. How do we tie people together and realize, bring out the best in our employees, manage some of that stress that they're having, like the conversation we were having today about people afraid of they're losing their jobs. That is a legitimate concern. And
that human element, just to mention real quick, the human element is kind of what prompted these two chapters, because we interviewed 13 experts. We brought that into the book as well to keep that human element going. So having those 13 perspectives, including Cindy and Kyle in this, right, were really important for us to have that perspective. And that's some of those conversations led to these two new chapters being added.
Absolutely, thank you. And another one is AI governance, which I think, my sort of shorthands for AI governance, there's certainly a lot more to it, but is thinking about SWOT analysis. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you have people across the organization, each from their own perspective, high up in the organization, middle and lower, or somebody who's in marketing, someone else is in strategy, someone else is in finance, what are the strengths of the organization related to AI? What are the weaknesses? Where do we see opportunities and threats? And then so I think that these are conversations that need to be had, not only at the top level, but I think across the organization. And so we added chapters on those as well.
Thanks, Brian.
And actually, if I may, just
please.
Actually, both of those chapters are basically turning into new books for us as well, because there's such rich concepts, and so we're moving down those ways. So go ahead, Adnan.
Exactly. Yeah, those are our next projects. So we're going to talk about some of our next projects that we're working on right now as well, which is really exciting. So in brief, the framework that I really think a lot about, and this is based on, and this was there before all of this came into being too, like the AI work, but it kind of, when Gen AI came to the forefront in November 2022 now, like that really had me thinking about a variety of different things. And one of the things I was really thinking a lot about is, what is the role of school? What is the role of learning? What is the role of education? How are we, what is it that we really want to focus on? And I kept coming back to what most people call soft skills, which I call core skills, right? Core skills or essential skills. And those are the things, those are the baseline for what I feel needs to happen. So the IQ EQ model and AQ model really is around IQ being intelligence or information quotient. EQ is emotional intelligence or feeling intelligence. And then the AQ can be action, adaptability, and or agency. And for each one of these, when you dive into IQ, we have information. AI has information, right? AI has a ton more information than we could ever have. Right? There's no way any one human could ever get to that place. So really, that is somewhere that AI just wins, right? Like hands down. I don't think that there's a comparison in that regard. So that's one place that I feel like, okay, yes, we have this. What can we do with this, right? And I really think about EQ is where we as humans shine, right? Why does AI behave the way it behaves? Why do we behave the way we behave? What is the differentiator? What makes us relevant? And I really feel like that emotions is the thing that makes us different right now. Kyle had a really interesting thought when we were interviewing him, where it was like, because I was saying AI doesn't have emotions, right? We have emotions, AI doesn't have emotions. Not yet, right? Like let's put that caveat in there. It does not have emotions yet. But Kyle said, yes, and at the same time, AI can make us feel things, right? When you communicate with AI, and I'm really interested in like our, Vicky was talking about this person who's going to be coming in and talking about her, AI husband. I'm, like AI can make us feel things, right? I'm sure that conversation around emotions is going to be really interesting in that meeting. So AI hallucinates, right? And humans lie. Understanding the why is really important, right? Why does AI hallucinate? Why do humans lie, right? And that's where AI and digital literacy come in, right? What is the reason? And, going back to just AI in general, obviously it's trained on human data, and human data is biased and flawed. So AI is biased and flawed right away. I do think that there are certain things, I've been thinking a lot about this, that I would trust an AI driver, an autonomous vehicle, more than a human driver. And I have those conversations about AI does not get angry, AI does not get drunk, AI does not get high, right? But humans do. So those are things I think about a lot in that context of like, where does AI quote unquote win or humans win, right? And where is it that I feel as a human race need to focus on? And And the last part of it is the AQ, which is the adaptability, agency, and action quotient. I know AI can do all of this stuff for me, but until Leah, you spent those 4 hours creating that online shop, you didn't know that you could do that. But you invested those 4 hours into creating that. And that's when you realized you had the experience. You took action in those 4 hours to be like, I'm going to prompt AI to do all of these different things. And then I'm going to know what I can do out of this. Like, what is it going to create? What is it going to make? What is it going to do? Right. So action is so important. And the same thing, like, there's a quote that kids will do 20% of what they hear, what you tell them to do, and 80% of what they see, who you are as a model, right? So my daughter, Zarmina, saw Brian and I meeting every single day for 6 weeks. And she was like, what are you doing? And I told her about the book we were writing. She's like, can I read the book? I'm like, I'm sure you can. That, there's going to be some words in there and some concept that might be a little hard to gather. And she's like, well, what can we do to make it easier for me? So Zarmina and I wrote a book based on the concepts in Brian and I's book, right? And here's Zarmina. She's going to come say a quick hello. She's sick today. This is the author.
That's awesome. What a use case. That's such a good use case.
And so she's a published author, and she took this, we took all this information. And I talk about this a lot, is that, when I introduce ChatGPT voice to adult humans, they're like, oh my gosh, this is magic. Zarmina and I spent 45 minutes talking to ChatGPT, and she was just like, oh, it's Google Home 2.0. Because she's used to talking to robots. She's used to doing all of that as an 11-year-old. Like, we've had Google Home for 7-8 years now. So she's been talking to Google Homes, having it turn on the lights, having it answer a question, how to spell this. They still use that. Like this morning, she was like, how do you spell this word? And Google Home will let them know. Anyways, so taking action, I feel like, is really important. And this is what Brian and I, when we got together, the one thing I think that was lacking for both of us over the past 20 years was accountability and taking action with each other. And we were able to be accountable to each other to take action and create this book and put it out into the world. And so I feel like, again, having that experience, taking the time and investing the time in creating something is so important. And then, okay, so why do I do this work, right? Like, for me, these are the reasons, is for humans to really be able to understand what their potential is. For us to, each individual is unique in that way. And this is the thing I think about a lot too, is that you can regenerate stuff every single time. Every prompt you give, you can regenerate. So you can have 1,000, and 1,000 times will give you 1,000 different answers. Yeah. But understanding when to stop, understanding when it's good enough, understanding all of that is the human brain. AI is not going to be able to help you with that. You're going to have to make that decision of when to stop, of when enough is enough, and what to do to move forward, right? And creating a better life and environment. We're just talking about UBI. We're just talking about poverty and eradicating poverty and all of those things. I think that creating that environment, coming into it, like using those emotions and understanding those emotions ourselves, the more we know about each other, ourselves, the more we can give back to the community and bias towards positive actions with impact, right? Like, how can we make meaningful, positive change in the world?
I love this. And recently I was just thinking about what's my why, what's my mission? And the words I came up with is helping people unlock human potential. And I was thinking that's something I do today, and it's something I've done in the past, and sort of a through line for me. So the fact that you have it written exactly the way you're claiming your own full human potential. And I could definitely speak that this bias towards positive action and with impact, Adnan's been, since the day I met him, he's been exactly this way. So that's perfect. I love it. And you're right, the AI can do a lot of this. And to our conversation before, and you might have seen in the chat before, I'm not entirely positive about AI by any means. I do think it's going to take a lot of people's jobs. I do think it's problematic in the wrong hands. But I think driven with this why, with this mission, we can do a great deal of good. And actually, as a side note, one of my hopes are if a lot of 4-pay jobs go away, maybe we can finally start solving problems that could never be solved before in the nonprofit space. Maybe we could work on poverty and health and giving people access to water and everything else.
And I think that's why also AI governance is so important, because if we are not regulating a lot of the stuff that is out there, or in terms of, especially with the kids, the safety and innovation for the kids, right? I think that that there is a need to think about what is the progression of usage of AI, and how are we using it in an intentional, responsible, and ethical manner. Those are the three things I think about a lot when bringing AI into the mix, especially when working with children. Like, what is the thing? So, two resources in life: money and time. You can make more money, right? Have AI do the things you don't want to do, so that you can do the things that you continue to want to do. If you want to take photos and you want to edit them yourself because you love doing that, do that, right? Yeah. Don't have AI edit your photos if you don't want it to do that. Have it do, like, you know, whatever else you don't like to do. If you love analyzing data and you love creating spreadsheets, do that. Have it create the graphs instead if you don't like doing that, right? What is it that you love to do? Continue to focus on the stuff that you want to do for yourself. That's what I feel like. And then again, AQ in action, right? Like, what are the things? So if you had to pick one of these three things to do right now, put in the chat, which one would you do? Would you create your own app? Would you learn a new language, or practice a language you already know that you want to get better at? Or you can publish your own work, like a podcast or a book. What would you do? Just put it in chat. Let's hear from people. Yeah. Right. App or publish. Exciting, right? And you can do that. All you have to do is take action. You're already taking action. So there's something about accountability, right? When you say that you're gonna, when you think that you want to do something, that's one step. When you say out loud that you're gonna do it, it's a second step. When you say out loud to somebody else and have accountability with that person, it's more likely to come true. So find somebody who can be your accountability partner in this. Like, I have my Brian. Who do you have? Who's your accountability partner? Who's going to talk to you to say, like, hey, Leah, you're going to create your own app. How are you doing on that? Right? Right. Hey, Hope, you're going to create your own app. Who are you going to work with? What are you going to, like, who are you going to talk to on a weekly basis to make that happen? Right? So you use the humans in the room to create that accountability, so that you can actually use AI in getting that information to move forward in those things.
So we should, I think we're getting towards the end of the slide, but we should be mindful of time. But for people who want to publish, it was so empowering for Adnan and I to do that. Both of us had wanted to write a book for 20 to 30 years before we actually wrote it. And for me, the thing that got it, and I think this is probably a lot of folks who talked about ADD, you might be good at the idea side of things and, you know, generating all kinds of novel things. Use ChatGPT or whatever the tool you're using as that other side to structure those things. So a lot of what Adnan and I, we spoke a book into existence in many ways by having conversations that we then asked ChatGPT, how would you organize this into a chapter outline, and move from there.
100%. I think this one's yours.
Oh, okay, great. So yeah, there's a lot of things that are practical takeaways that I think people can do, but you can start with those framework models. And then you can get people together at various different levels of the organization, from leadership to mid-level and at the base of the organization, and really thinking about what are the strengths we have now, what are the gaps, and do some baseline assessment. And then you have something to take action on, and you can start building concrete things. I'm much more of a big picture person, but I know some people are very much concrete, and I think probably more people on this call are a little bit more excited big picture people, but we definitely, when you're putting into an organizational setting, you need to think, what's the immediate next step? What's the plan that would come after that? So you can start driving those things, and you start with low-hanging fruit. I heard recently somebody call it a roof shot, and then only after that a moon shot. It's trying to build those steps and build some momentum.
So frameworks in action. So we basically used the IQ, EQ, AQ model to create the book. That is what we did. We had all the information. We had a lot of the information in our head, but we didn't have it organized. So we used the information, the way that ChatGPT and Read AI and Notebook LM and all the different tools, which we talk about in our book, we used all of that information to give us a framework to use that framework, right? We used our EQ to kind of like reach out to the people that we brought into the conversations with each other, and then we took action, right? Like, again, that is the frameworks, those 3 frameworks, that one framework in action really allowed us to create this book in an effective manner and to really put it out there.
So I think we've gone over many of these points, but begin with that key mindset about thinking EQ, IQ, and AQ, and with a network mindset, and then use AI as a catalyst, a connector, and accelerant for innovation, sort of based around your mission. Always begin with mission. One of the things I think that's so interesting about AI when people apply it is you say, okay, we're going to apply AI to your mission. What's your mission? And people don't have a clear vision of what that mission is. And then sometimes you have to go and ask leadership and people in the organization and clarify that. Same thing with processes. How do we use AI agents to improve our processes? So the first question is, well, what are our processes? and why do we do it this way? Was this passed down like it was, written in stone tablets 25 years ago, and we just inherited and always done it the same way? So there's sort of an inherently valuable thing about just asking these questions to begin with. But then, of course, when you apply AI, you can move it even further. So this book is free. So between April 1st and 5th, you and others can download this free for the Kindle version. And there is, for those you wanted to publish, there is a chapter, a book, sort of a page at the end that says how we wrote this book and talks about the process that we followed. And you can see things as we mentioned. Kyle's in there, Cindy's in there, the models that we've mentioned are in there, and we would love your feedback. So please also connect with us on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. We'd love the feedback.
Beautiful. And so what I'd love to do, thank you for that, guys. Absolutely inspiring. I mean, just like all aspects of it. I love that it is a fractal of the work you did to create it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But does anyone have any questions for Brian or Adnan? Raise your hand and we'll bring you up, and would love to start the conversation.
I can go ahead and start the conversation while people are thinking about their questions, and say thank you so much for this. It was really inspiring to hear you guys. I really appreciated it felt very like you wrote a book and you talked about how you wrote the book, the process, which is the same process you wrote the book about, which was really interesting. I have a question about one of the things that I've noticed is that the world outside the AI Salon is doing things in a way that feels very, very a way they've done it for a very long time, with the exception of some tech companies, right? But even tech companies, people have their cultures and their entrenched companies and corporate cultures that they've done a certain thing a certain way for a long time. How do you write this book and give it to them, or write it in a way that people can even start to shift how they're thinking about what they know to what is going to come? I didn't read the book, so forgive me, but what was that? What were those conversations like, and how did you come up with the ideas that you came up with to get people there?
You want to take that one on?
Sure. So for me, like when people, the book is called AI Culture Shift, but when people ask me what the book is about, I let them know the book is about humanity. And it's really around what makes us human. What are the things that we can double down on, triple down on, and how do we relate to each other? Which is why thinking about EQ is so important to me. So the model of EQ, or social emotional learning, that I follow is through this organization called 6seconds.org, and it's know yourself, choose yourself, give yourself. So you know yourself, like you understand who you are as a human, right? You get to know your skills, your strengths, what you love, what you care about. The more you know about yourself, the more you can choose which of those strengths you're going to use in a specific moment. When you know what strengths to use, then you're able to really shine and give of yourself to the community that you belong to. And when you give to the community, whatever that community is, whether it's your family, whether it's the country, or whatever it is, when you give to that community, that process will allow you to know more about yourself. And then you can know more, and then you can choose, and then you can give, and then it's a circle that keeps going and going and going. So just in all of that, I feel like that's one little thing that I feel like resonates with people, and all of those different things, like choose human, right? That's really basically where I go. Choose human.
And a couple of thoughts I have. We do have at the end of every chapter some questions where you could start to think about applying it to yourself about, here's the model and how would you apply it. But I think a couple other things is that, and this is one of the things I actually love about AI in general, is that once you've got a bunch of content, you can spin it out in so many different forms. So in his example, Adnan and his daughter created Navigating Nav, which is something that, fifth graders can read, is at the level, something like that. And so take some of those core ideas and move them out. And then also, I'm in the midst of writing another book. Actually, I would love if anybody wants an early copy, an early draft. I would love your feedback on it because I think it's fantastic. But as I mentioned before, it's basically a business parable. So if you've ever read Who Moved My Cheese or One Minute Manager or a book like that, I'm trying to write it in that style specifically because I have been a little bit frustrated that sometimes when people look up the book and they're like, Brian, I'm loving it, and I'm on chapter 3 and stuck or something like that. That it is a lot for a lot of people to read books. I happen to consume books like it's water. But most people aren't like that. And so I'm trying to get it into a form that people can really digest.
And Brian, you're looking for something specific too. What are you looking for that book? Let's ask the universe. Let's put it out into the world right now.
Oh, yeah. So, and actually some people have talked about some things, but basically it started with this concept I had in my head that was mission, AI, and everything else. And that's it's an order of priority. It's not a to-do list. It's like, if you're going to start and figure out what your organization does, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a nonprofit, or actually even as just an individual trying to figure out what you're doing with your life, you should stop and think, okay, we're going to start with a mission. The next thing you should think is AI exists. If we were to start everything over again, how would we do this and have it be empowered with AI? What are the processes, the strategies, the tactics that we'd use? And how does it look differently? And then everything else, it gets aligned on those things. You start with a mission, and that clarifies, I think, a lot of the noise about what we could possibly be doing. Kyle frequently talks about, being chased off in every direction, trying to learn every AI tool under the sun, and then increasingly coming to be like, okay, no, I'm going to pick my lane, and I'm going to choose something that I truly care about. And so it becomes this sort of lens for shifting things from before. And there's this model in finance that some people might know, which is zero-based costing, which is if you have, like, say, a budget from last year, you could take all your line items and add 3% and then send it off like a coward and be done. But the best thing to do is to say, we're going to start with zero. We're going to say, like, take our entire budget, take everything off the table, and then we're going to add back the most important things first until we get a new way of doing things. And to me, mission, AI, and everything else is that process. What's the first thing that comes back is your mission. Why do we exist? The second thing back is we live in a time when AI exists and various different tools, and then all the processes, everything else that an organization does. So I would love feedback on that. Would be fantastic.
Great. I want to tee up. I guess it's a follow-on conversation for the book in a lot of ways. But before we got started tonight, there were 5 or 6 of us on the call, and just spontaneously, Adnan was like, "Oh, I just published an app on the App Store," and then Brian said, "Oh, I've got this other book project," and then Leah said, "Oh, I spun up a e-commerce print-on-demand site." Like, and Vicky had one, and I had one, and like there was just this, and it wasn't. No one was bragging. Like it was kind of this matter of fact. Oh yeah, I did this thing this weekend that in the before time would be a remarkable Herculean event, right? Or, it would take you 3 months to spin up. And we all just sort of casually were talking about this. I would love for you both to just kind of share your experience of how you've gone from, I can get ChatGPT to write an email here or there, this or that, to kind of unlock the possibility of what's possible that you might not have ever thought you would ever do, that now you said for decades you've been thinking about writing a book, Brian, and now you've got another one coming out, this one's still hot off the presses. So I would love for you to just talk about that amplification of who you are and kind of either what you're discovering or what you feel like the future looks like, because that was a really interesting moment for me right before the call started, where I was just like, if you take in what everyone just said, it's remarkable.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think is this summer, I started thinking about writing an animated show about a dog park. And I don't know how to do animation. I've never written a show before and the whole thing. And it became suddenly possible, right? That we can use these tools to be able to do it. And I think I came from spatial computing, so VR. And the idea that you would build a VR app is just so beyond the pale. And I think everybody's experienced this with technology, the amount of money it would cost and the expertise and all these things. The only people who were building apps before were people who had high technical proficiency, but they weren't always the subject matter experts. They weren't always the creative thinkers. They weren't always the person who saw how it could be applied in the world. So that perfect idea of the person who has the idea, sees the use case, can do it, and then quickly get to making that happen, that's just like incredibly empowering and exciting, I think.
Yep.
I think there's something to be said that about like I forget who was talking about this, but if you can dream it, you can build it, right? Like that's the age we live in right now. Somebody, like I don't know if it was Kyle or Leo was saying something about like if you can dream it, you can build it, and that resonates so much with me because it's not anymore around like, oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the equipment. Those things are there, and if you want time, just delete 5 social media apps from your phone, and you've reclaimed about 12 hours of your time per day, if not per week, right? Right? Like what you need is impetus. What you need is like that urge that it makes so that you can't sleep until you do this thing, or you create this thing, or you want to do this thing. And the first time that it happens, or the second time it happens, or the third, it's like whenever you have that, like I had one of those things, and I should have just gotten up, because I'm now thinking about, since I am posting more on social media, I was like, and I was like reviewing my social media stats with Brian the other day, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there was an app that could tell you exactly how each post? And then, I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to build that now.
That's just awesome. Yeah, it's funny. There's all this talk of what AI is going to take away, but I feel like there's less talk of and you can do all this other crap. Like what it makes possible is insane. It's kind of some of the stuff Heather was talking about, and Heather, you raised your hand. So Heather. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. And then to your point, if you can dream it, you can build it. But we all have the capability to make these things, and I'm a programmer, so I do know how hard it is to build things. It's very tedious. I'm working on Python right now, and it's, but I'm a DIYer, so I part of the pleasure of what I do comes from having done it and having learned it. And I want to get to that point where AI gives me that gratification, but I'm just not there yet. I'm sort of clinging to my old 90s DIY mentality when, I wrote this HTML. This is amazing. This is like the reward right there. And I'm not feeling that reward when I get AI to do something yet. But yeah.
What funny, I have a friend who I told him about writing the book, and he's like, "You wrote that?" And how quickly he's like, "That's so punk rock." And I was like, "Wow!" But that's the punk rock aesthetic is DIY. Is it's people who can do it themselves, right? But actually, something I've seen, which is the people who actually there's been a slow uptake amongst programmers to use AI, and oftentimes when I ask them, friends of mine and people I meet who are programmers, they'll be like, yeah, I'm using AI, but they're using like traditional programming and then sort of tapping into the API for OpenAI or something like that, as opposed to what other people can do, like with Lovable or Cursor or something like that, where you just prompt the entire thing into existence. But I guess you just feel like maybe there's a lack of craft there that you're lacking, like it's too easy and you didn't, or
it's just been too hard when I hate to say it, but the skills that I've developed have been incredibly painful to develop. And so, I'll probably never get to where I can completely use AI, but I think that also what I wanted to say was the other ingredient of a successful project is to focus, to quiet your mind. And, you said you're you are a Zen monk. And I think in order to embark on any project, you really have to begin from this quiet place where you're focused, at least in my experience. So if you're surrounded by a lot of, and AI is sort of like, we're surrounded by all the stimulation. So how do you reconcile those things?
And I think for me, the question really is around, are you focused on the process or the product, right? Mm-hmm. Are you focused on the process of writing it or what's coming at the end of it, right? Like, and I think that really matters because, there's something to be said about like learning as a journey, right? And life is a journey. So enjoying the journey, right? Like we're all going to be at the end product of the journey, right? We're all going to the same destination, whether it's 6 feet under or 6 feet over, wherever it is, right? But that's the end goal, right, of life. But enjoy the journey. So if you love the process of coding, do it. Don't have AI do it for you. Have it do other things. Have it do some design work for you if you want. Have it do some marketing for you if you want, right? Like that's what I think. I think that's where the human intelligence is so important, that not everyone's going to use AI for the same things, because everyone has their unique individual needs and wants and loves, and continue to do the thing that you love to do, because this is your life and you can live it however you want. Right? You don't have to do anything, right? You choose.
Yeah, good point. Good point about images.
I thought about clarity. One of my favorite things, actually, this is like my model right now. I wouldn't want to live my entire life in conversation. I love talking with you all. I love talking, just talking to people and also talking to AI. And so, and a lot of my ideas with people or computers are not that clear to begin with. And so I spit something out, and ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using, Cursor and Gemini and Claude and everything else, they give you this way of, I say this and it gives you that. And I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted. I don't really want emojis in there, and it sounds really schmaltzy. Do it again, and then it gives you another answer, and it gives you another answer. And so it's through that process of prototyping, like sort of classic iteration cycle, that we get to something. And so you don't really have to be actually all that focused to be able to do that. It's a boon to the ADD people out there who just sort of like, what? No, blah, until you finally get to something and be like, okay, that's it. That's what I want. Yeah.
Another thing I'll throw out, Heather, that is kind of at the core of the salon. We've got this journey to AI readiness, and it's play first, mindfully create, generously lead. What I would encourage you is live a bit in the play first area and play in areas where you're not good at something, or like I'll never be an artist, or I'm not good at music, or maybe it's creative writing or poetry. There are probably like deep wells of joy that you will tap into, that you have in your mind that, oh, I'm not good at that. I feel like we're moving into a world where everyone can be good at everything. And it goes back to Adnan's point about just, figure out where you want to go. But I would encourage you, take the expectations off it and start playing in areas outside of your expertise. And you might find some magic out there.
I would actually say that that's where the magic always is, right? And that is when we know how to do something and we're experts at it, we just do it.
Right.
Right? It's when something feels hard or we hit a spot and we're like, wait, I'm not doing it. I'm not fill in the blank. I can't do it. That struggle is where your voice starts to come out, and that's where the magic really happens.
But the two sides of that, I think, where sometimes people say, what are you trying to accomplish? Just go in and start doing that. That's the one thing you're going to do. That's your focusing thing. But on the other hand, it's better to say, no, do something that's absolutely not core to what you're doing, because then you can play. Then you can really feel free, and maybe you can take some lessons from that and move it over.
Yeah.
One of the slides we took out of our presentation was when Brian and I did this presentation in Pakistan. So by the way, Brian and I first met for the first time when we went to Lahore, Pakistan to do a keynote for the book. That was the book launch that we did in Pakistan. And so Brian and I have met twice in two countries, not the US.
And you both live in the US.
Yeah, we both live in the US. Okay. Exactly. We both live in the US.
He's in California.
East Coast, West Coast, but one of the things I was going to say is that so one of the slides is that, like, there's like this is your comfort zone. This is where the magic happens. So you have to step way outside your comfort zone to go to where the magic happens, right? So getting really comfortable with being uncomfortable. So on stage, Brian and I, we did an acrobatic routine on stage, and this was like what, like we had met in person, what, the day before we were on stage doing that?
Now, Adnan does this sort of thing. This is only the second time I'd ever attempted to be lifted in the air, and it was like on stage in front of hundreds of people, and now on YouTube that you can watch, I guess.
So yeah, stepping outside your comfort zone. The more you do that, the more comfortable you get with being uncomfortable, the more magic that happens in your life.
Beautiful.
I would say the salon wouldn't be here if I hadn't stepped outside my comfort zone. So this is an example of me stepping outside my comfort zone. So
there you go. Yeah. Any other questions for Adnan and Brian? Or thoughts?
I would like to say one more thing, that this has been an incredibly inspiring talk. And I was surprised by how inspiring it was. You both bring so much wisdom and so much human knowledge of being human, and you figured that out. And then you're putting that on AI is so inspiring and cool to listen to. I can't wait to read the book.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Absolutely awesome. Thanks for your time. Thanks for popping in, and congratulations on the success of the book. It's absolutely awesome.